You're listening to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast, the show that proves no one stumbles upon success ever. With your host, Lou Need. Every Mondays and Thursdays, we deliver cold hard evidence behind the power of a robust morning routine. Get ready to be transformed by the renewal of your mind.
Hello, morning enthusiasts. Welcome to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast. I am your host, Lou Need Lewis, and today I have the honor of introducing a very special guest to the show, Shana Olmstead. Shana became a psychotherapist to help people who are stuck to change the way they think about themselves and the world. She understands that therapy can be transformative, and she gets so inspired when her clients grow and change. Shana is going to walk us through how we can rewire our brain, because she believes mindfulness can help you rewire your brain because your brain changes based on how you use it. Every time you have a thought, it builds a neuron in the brain. And when these neurons connect, it builds a network. Shana, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes. Please walk us through your journey here as a psychotherapist, and then now incorporating mindfulness and helping clients change.
Okay, lovely. Yeah. And so, part of my journey actually started with mindfulness. I was in a very unhappy place, like a lot of my clients are now, about 15, 16 years ago. And I started doing some personal work. I started doing therapy and going to yoga and reading spiritual books. And I had a spiritual awakening, and it showed me that, the integration of mindfulness and spirituality and energy into psychotherapy was where I was supposed to go with my life, because those were the things that I was doing that helped me feel so much different than before I started doing those things. And I just needed to share that with as many people as I could to help, continue the spark of awakening, because I believe, we're all here on the planet to increase our consciousness in order to help other people increase their consciousness, in order to continue the evolution of consciousness on the planet. And so I just felt this big calling to do that. And I felt like, it was my mission to be a bridge from traditional mainstream world to the spiritual. And I felt like doing that in a psychotherapy office would be my best chance of bringing people in that were focused on anxiety, and then showing them how looking at a bigger holistic picture and bringing in mindfulness and bringing spirituality in could help them feel better sustainably and permanently, rather than just maybe coming back in every 5 years or so when they have an issue, teaching them the skills that they can use on their own to transform their lives. So, they don't have to depend on a therapist anymore.
Teaching them how to fish and not giving them the fish.
Yes, exactly. Right. So, yeah.
And so anxiety, so that anytime anxiety provokes itself or reveal itself, they are able to go into their toolbox and actually find ways to cope.
Exactly. Or learn from it, right? Because, I think for me, in my journey and every client that I've worked with, anxiety is a messenger. It's telling you that things are probably out of alignment in your life. There's something that you need to pay attention to. There's something that you need to shift. And I agree. There's sometimes where anxiety is just happening, kind of like right now in our world with all this coronavirus. And I live actually in the epicenter in the Wuhan of the United States right now. I'm in Kirkland, where that first care facility and everything was. So a lot of clients are super anxious right now, and we're all feeling it. And so that's a little different than the internal anxiety that's come from things that need to change in your life. And so it's just always a holistic picture, right? Finding ways to calm your physiology down enough so that you can hear what's underneath the anxiety, which is really hard to do because a lot of us are just caught up all day long in thoughts and going to work and caring for our families. And so to me, a big key for myself and for other people that are struggling with anxiety is just slowing it down, getting still and meditating was really, really, really essential and transformative on my journey. I wouldn't have really known who I was or what I needed to do with my life if I hadn't started practicing that, and finding ways to get out of my head and into my real feelings, because that's where the secret of your life is. It's not in your brain and society and the shoulds.
It's an inside job. Happiness.
Exactly.
It's an inside job. You gotta devote to the energy, do the deep work, go in
Truth.
and actually focus on inward. And then not so
Exactly.
much on the exterior, because we're so apt to blame the outside world, to blame others, but never really turn the finger inward and says, you know, what do I need to do to have a peaceful or more peaceful lifestyle?
Absolutely. Or how do I need to reframe my thinking? Or, you know, it's always we're never a victim. I like how you said that. That's true. Yeah.
Walk us through some stuff on how to decrease anxiety.
Yeah. So again, it's a holistic picture, but a lot of things that I tell probably any client that comes into my office is finding ways, like I said, every single day, multiple times a day, to slow down. You know, I always recommend a meditation practice to everybody, but especially people that have anxiety. There's so many ways to do that. You know, you can start going to a meditation group or class. There's so many apps now that are super simple. As far as guided meditations go, I really like Insight Timer or Daily Calm, or there's one called Stop, Breathe, and Think that's also really helpful. So I encourage people at least once a day or multiple times a day in the beginning to just start a meditation practice. And most people say they don't have time, or it's super boring, or they're not very good at it, which is all, I totally understand that, but it's like a muscle, you know, and it doesn't happen the first time. But as people keep going, and even getting 30 seconds to a minute, if they're sitting for 20 minutes of connection and stillness, can be super transformative. And so once you start getting a little taste of that and realizing what it is to truly relax in that moment, and realizing the ripple effect it has on your life, people usually get pretty motivated to continue and actually start looking forward to it and liking it. So that's a super important thing for me. I also think, and I know this isn't always possible for everybody in every circumstance, but I think we're all suffering a little bit from nature deficit disorder. And so anxiety, you know, I live, you know, like I said, really close to a lot of centers of technology. And I work with mostly empaths. So people that are very sensitive to their environment and people around them. And so if we're in a building all day and we're with technology, or we're with all these cars and buildings and concrete, you know, we're not in our natural state. We're meant to be in nature. And I feel super blessed to be in a place. I live 5 minutes from a state park. There's beautiful lakes all around. So we have a lot more opportunity than I think people do to get out in nature, even, you know, once a week, just taking a little walk in the trees, like far away from cars and people. So I think that's super important. And even combining that with mindfulness, you know, what I like to do is not put in headphones, you know, not go with other people, but just use that time to be really still with myself and listen to myself. Because I find if I don't do that, what happens is when I go to bed, my brain is trying to tell me all the things that I didn't give myself space to listen to during the day. And so if I give myself that time to just kind of let my mind wander in stillness and quiet, I get a lot of answers. I connect with my real feelings, and then I'm not kept up as much at night later, spinning on all of those thoughts. And it just really calms down your physiology when you're in nature. There's lots of research backing that up, you know, that it's super helpful for us. I think another tool that I give to every single client is just check-ins throughout the day, in addition to their meditation practice. So once an hour, just even setting a timer on your phone and sitting quietly, sometimes placing your hand on your lower belly can help you connect with your feelings, and just slowing your breathing down and asking yourself, what am I feeling right now? Because a lot of what anxiety is under the surface. It's unconscious automatic thoughts that are really running your day without you even understanding that. And so the more you can check in with what's going on underneath the surface and what your thoughts are telling you, it's way easier to catch it than if those unconscious thoughts are spiraling throughout the day, and then you get home and you're super anxious and you're yelling at your boyfriend or whatever, because you haven't, you know, taken the time throughout the day to check in, to calm yourself down and to soothe yourself, and to ask yourself, if you are feeling anxious, what do I really need right now? So that that has been super transformative, I think, for myself and for a lot of clients. It's just, taking the 20 minutes of meditation and spacing it out throughout the day as well, and just getting still more frequently to check in with your body, because it has a lot of wisdom about how you're feeling.
Yeah. And then the best way to do it, I find it, the best way to do meditation and do this is in the morning. To
Amen.
Get it out the way, which is part of the morning routine. I love to say that the 10 minutes you do meditation, when you come out 10 minutes later, you're not the same brain that entered the meditation practice 10 minutes earlier. There's a renewal of the mind that took place. There's a transformation of the mind that takes place, because you almost feel like a new person than when you went in.
It's true. It transforms who you are, how you feel, and what's on the other side of it. And it shifts our vibration. It shifts our frequency in our body. So things are different. And the problem that we may have thought was a problem when we began our meditation, we may have a beautiful solution for, or realize that it wasn't a problem after all anyway,
Yeah. So this is, we express the need and why it's important to connect, right, to the internal guidance. We don't listen to that intuition enough. We don't quiet the mind enough to hear it, because it is a still, quiet voice. Right. It's not going to shout out you. It's not going to yell at you, and it's not going to keep yelling. And so we have to be equipped and be in a position where we can hear it. That internal guidance, that hunch, that intuition that kind of guides us through life. It's there to protect us, but it also knows what's best for us. So how can people start honing into that?
Yeah. So I think, a lot of the things I talked about with anxiety are also ways to get the mind quiet enough so that you can hear that intuition. And so I think a lot of times when I first start working with people, they're kind of just in a state of freak out and anxiety. So the first, work that we do is just learning how to get quiet and still. And then as that process happens, through meditation, through those check-ins that you're doing all day long, through being in nature, through, just other ways that you can relax, as far as taking a bath or working out really works well for some people, that you have to be able to calm that anxiety down and fear in order to get in touch with your emotions. And sometimes that process takes a little while. And sometimes people are super, impatient and frustrated, which I get, because everybody wants to know what their intuition tells them. But, that frustration and desperation actually pushes away the information that we want. And it acts like fear. It shuts down our brain and our intuitive sense, so we can't even hear our insight. And so I think that's another part of it, is just kind of working on relaxation and trust rather than trying to force the insight, because again, that pushes it away. It tells us that, we're scared that it's not going to happen. And so if we can be telling ourselves a different story, because I think a lot of clients come into and they're annoyed and frustrated that they can't hear their intuition. But if you can start reminding yourself of all the times that you have heard your insight, even if you didn't listen to it, right? Because those are still good ways to learn. So if you can remind yourself of those, in addition to times you did listen to your intuition and it worked out really well, that starts building your confidence a little bit more about the ability to connect with it in the future. And if we're not confident in our sense of our insight, it's really, again, much harder to connect to it. So I think self-love and self-appreciation of the insight that you already have, and retraining your brain in a way that tells a story of, I'm so excited of how intuitive I am. It's so cool that I keep getting more intuitive every day. And, repeating those things to yourself is a much better way to open up into that insight than being frustrated about it or telling yourself that it's never going to happen, because our words are our wands, our thoughts create our reality. So if you think it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. But if you can be in the faith that it already has happened, it already is happening all the time, and it's going to continue to get better and better, I think that's really good.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And it's amazing too. It kind of gives you more energy once you get in alignment.
Absolutely.
You find your purpose, right? You find your calling. It wakes you up in the morning. Like I haven't had to use an alarm clock anymore because.
Oh, me either. Yeah. That's so exciting, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And that's, it's all linked together because you can't know what your purpose is, right? If you're in your mind and your ego and you're not relaxed enough to get down to your true insight. And so for that, I think it's a combination of continuing the practice and being relaxed and getting into your intuition. And also just doing things that make you feel really good all the time, even if you don't think that's part of your purpose, because what that does is it shifts your energy, it increases your vibration. And so once you come across something that might be your purpose, it's easier to recognize when you've had a lot of practice being in that vibration of joy and passion and excitement, even if, again, you don't think it's a related thing. Spending at least 15 to 20 minutes every single day doing things that bring you joy, I believe also brings you closer to your purpose. In addition to just speaking your truth in general, which again is tied to reducing anxiety, it's tied to mindfulness, and it's tied to connecting to your true feelings, because it's really difficult to speak how you feel if you don't know how you feel and you're in your mind. But I believe that speaking your truth, it doesn't have to be to everybody, but you do need to have people in your life that can hear you and can validate what you're saying, because the more you're able to speak your truth, the more power you're going to have, and the more easily you're going to be able to see what your true purpose is. And just being super honest with yourself, because I think a lot of times people hear their intuition, but they're scared and they shut it down. If it tells them they're working at this really high paying job, but their insight is telling them something like, hey, I think you really would be good at opening a bakery, or, something that doesn't make sense to the logical mind, people just pretend to shut that down, right? And then they get more unhappy and more unhappy in their jobs, and they don't understand why, and they start to take an antidepressant or maybe switch jobs, but they're still working in tech. And 10 years down the line, they're still unhappy. And we still have free will if we listen to our insight. And so even letting that little whisper in of like, ooh, baked goods might be super fun, and telling yourself, I hear that insight, but I'm choosing to stay at this job right now. That's really different than pushing it away and pretending you don't hear it at all. Because when you do that, it kind of blocks the flow of intuition. But if you can accept what it's saying and you can tell it, hey, I don't want to do that right now. I'm going to start baking more on my off time, but I'm not ready to make that leap. At least then your insight knows it's being listened to, and it's going to keep offering you more information about that rather than shutting it down. And then eventually, you'll probably start baking in your off time. You'll realize how good that feels. And then you can follow that a little bit more than if you just completely shut that down. Does that make sense?
And I know you have a rigorous morning routine. You have an ability to, quiet down the mind and include mindfulness. Tell us about your other habits. How do you get up, dress up, and show up? What's your morning routine like?
Oh, yes. And I'm like you. I do not have an alarm. I'm such a morning person. That's why I was so excited about this podcast, because I'm like, yay, other morning people, because some people in your life are like, well, what are you talking about? I sleep in. That's not a fun time of day. But I've always loved the morning. And so I remember even as a kid, just waking up super early and nobody else was awake. But that quiet, magical morning time is so cool to me. Nobody else is around and you just get to do whatever you want. And so I wake up around 5 now, and my grandmother was very spiritual, and she was a part of Unity Church. And so she always used to get this little booklet called The Daily Word, which is basically an affirmation of the day. And then there's a little page about what it means. So that's one of the first things I do. I'm still in bed. I have the little book right in my nightstand. And so I just sit up and I read that before my mind is fully awake, and, just kind of sit after that, a short meditation. It's maybe 5 to 10 minutes, just contemplating that word and just letting whatever it needs to come in to energize me throughout the day. And so that's the first step I do. And then second, I remember growing up, my mom used to always exercise in the morning, and she was really into yoga. And I was resistant of that when I was growing up and a teenager. But as I became an adult and had my own children, I realized what a cool practice that was for me. And so I do that as well in the morning. And it's a really nice way to connect with her as well, because she's on the other side. And so I feel like she comes and does yoga with me in the morning. And that really helps me, get into my body and just take some deep breaths and feel my physical body a little bit more again. It's quiet. I don't have my phone in my room. I'm not listening to music during this time. I'm just trying to be present and in my body. So that's another part of the morning routine. My phone is, out of the room. It's downstairs. I don't have any sounds or anything else in the morning. And then after that, I slowly get ready through the day, and I have a little sunlight because I live in a really dark part of the world. And so that's a new addition this year. And that's really helped me. And it feels like, I just imagine positive energy flooding through my body in the morning while I'm getting ready. And then while I'm doing my makeup and my hair and all of those things, I'm always listening to something that's really positive for me to keep my vibration high, whether it's an audiobook or a podcast that I really like, but things that keep my vibration super high. I don't look at my phone and, unless it's the podcast until I get to my office, because I don't need social media or anybody else invading my personal time in the morning while I'm trying to keep my vibration really high. And I just get really excited about clothes and shoes and things like that. And so that's a fun thing for me when I'm waking up to think about, what dress am I going to wear today? And what shoes am I going to wear today? So that's a fun part of my morning routine too. And just thinking about the work that I do, because I really love what I do. And then once I get to my office, I've done that little meditation already in bed, but I really like to, cleanse the space in my office just energetically. And I do another meditation when I'm here. And that one, this is maybe in the last year or so, I've been doing some binaural beats, some audio meditations that are just sounds, but it shifts my frequency. It helps me get ready for my day and just be able to see my clients in a super high vibration way. And so that one is more 15 minutes or so. Oh, and then also on the way to work, I say affirmations for about the first 5 minutes of my drive. I just link that together because it's a habit that I do every day anyway. And those affirmations that I do, they, again, keep my energy high on the way to work, and they help me to feel energized and excited throughout my day. So that's a little snippet of what I do in the morning.
Yeah, affirmations are powerful.
Woohoo! Uh-huh.
They are powerful. I mean, it reframes the mind, right? Because we were programmed at a very young age, so we were at what do we call it? I call it the alpha state, where you were just absorbing information. You were learning how to walk. You were learning how to eat. Mm-hmm. You were learning how to recognize the family and names and all this stuff. So you've been programmed with a lot of information from our parents, from our school, and a lot of those don't serve us anymore. So affirmation is a great way to reframe the subconscious mind. Mm-hmm. Rewire, as you said, those neurons make a connection. We wire the brain so that it serves us, so that we're feeding it the things that we want to see in our life. So I am grateful. I am confident. I am able, versus, those limiting beliefs that we picked up along the way that is so ingrained in our fiber, in our being, that affects our everyday life, our decision, or our behaviors.
Absolutely. Right. Yep. And repeating them, because our subconscious, we need repetition to help that stick, right? Over and over and over and over, and include it, making it linked onto a feeling, right? And layering it. And so that's another part of it to me is, especially in the morning, but all day long, to find things that lift your energy up and to focus on them on purpose. And that's another way that we rewire our brain, not just to decrease anxiety, but to bring in more positive, good feelings on purpose all day long. Noticing something that you like right now, I'm looking out my window at this tree. It has no leaves on it yet, but it's still amazingly beautiful. And how cool that nature knows how to grow this tree like that without even trying. And so focusing on that appreciation and holding that feeling for about 30 seconds. And, if you can at the same time, adding in some affirmations it adds on to the feeling. It helps it stick in your subconscious even more, and it just keeps expanding. And so I think that's another way to just really treat anxiety, is to not just notice when you're going down a negative thought pattern. I mean, do that and shift it and come back to the moment, but also, if you're able to proactively all day long bring in good feelings and bring in good feeling thoughts, there's not as much space for anxiety to creep in, right? You're all filled with light. And so the darkness, there's no room for it anymore. And so I think that's another way to just shift anxiety and be successful and feel good all day long. And we're in charge of that, which is so cool. We get to do that on purpose. We get to change the way our brain functions on purpose, which is so exciting for me.
We have that power. Yeah.
Yes.
It's really sad when we realize we say we don't have that power. We're not powerful because we relinquish that power to someone else, right? We put it outside of us, but it's really inward.
Exactly. And I think that's the hugest turning point for people, either when they're in my office or clients or friends or children, when that clicks that we're, in charge of our own happiness and we're responsible for it, it can sometimes feel like a big, heavy weight. And then people beat themselves up for not doing it sooner. But then it can be really exciting. It's a huge, huge shift when people realize, what? I can create my own happiness and I'm in charge of all of this and I'm creating my life. That's when, real change can happen.
Because that's the only thing we truly have control over is our thoughts. It's our mind.
Exactly.
We can't control anything else, but our perception of how we perceive things make a world of a difference.
True fact.
Yeah. Yep. Tell us, how can we connect with you? How can we find you?
Yeah. So my website is a good way to do that. It's just my name, shana.olmstead.com. No, there's no dot in that. That's my email address. Sorry about that. But there's ways to connect on there. I do also write a blog every week. So my blog is on there. And this week I was talking about the coronavirus and just ways to, stay out of fear. I also really like Instagram right now. So my name on there is Shana_Olmstead. And so I'm posting pretty much every day, and there's links to my blog and different resources on there as well. So I'd love to connect with you on Instagram.
Fantastic. I'm really glad you came on and helped us break down mindfulness, the simplicity of mindfulness. Really appreciate your energy this morning.
Lovely. It was a pleasure. I hope you have a wonderful day and stay safe and healthy and at peace.
Thank you. You as well.
All right, morning enthusiasts, that's it for today's show. Thank you for tuning in. If you love the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast, we'd love to hear from you. So go ahead and subscribe, rate, and give a review on iTunes or Google Play. While you're at it, tell a friend about the show. Be sure to visit bestmorningroutineever.com and our Facebook group to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our fantastic free bonus content. Until next time,